Sorry, it's 6 p.m. and I'll call the meeting to order. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I'd also like to welcome Devin Casario, our new Economic Development and Funding Manager, who is joining us for his first council meeting tonight. I'm sure everyone would wish him a warm welcome. And with that, I will look for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Duggan, seconded by Councillor or Deputy Mayor Mosier. Are there any additions or deletions to note? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. The minutes of our August 12th council meeting. I'm wondering if somebody would be so kind as to move those. Moved by Councillor Ernst, seconded by Councillor Bertels. Any errors or omissions to note? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. No public hearings or presentations. There's no correspondence. That takes us on to unfinished business, and we are joined by Corporal John Payne from the RCMP for the quarterly report from April to June 2021. So I will turn the floor over to Corporal Payne.
Thank you. My name is John Payne. I'm the new community policing officer for Lunenburg District. I'd just like to introduce myself and say thank you very much for the invitation to attend the meeting tonight. Okay. My name is John Payne. I'm the new corporal for the community policing supervisor for the Lunenburg District, the town of Lunenburg and encompassing communities. I'd like to thank everyone for for your invitation for me to attend tonight. I have a report here just to advise of the second quarter, which ranges from April 1st to June 30th of 2021. For the town of Lunenburg, there was 201 calls of service, which included criminal code files, Controlled Drugs and Substance Act, and Provincial Act investigations. A couple of files of impaired driving, a couple of check stops due to COVID with the restrictions that are in place. We've tried to limit our contact unless necessary within the residents of Lunenburg. For the most part, Lunenburg is a very good and quiet community. And if there's any questions or concerns, there's nothing of concern at this time within the community. And if there's any questions or concerns or any thing that I'd like to be directed, I'll certainly take any questions.
Thank you, Corporal Payne, and feel free to take your mask off when you're speaking. It makes you a little clearer to hear. Any questions of council for Corporal Payne? Councillor Sanford.
Thank you.
Okay.
And welcome to Lunenburg.
Thank you.
I was at a meeting last night with a number of women, and there was a great concern and a lot of discussion around people setting off fireworks and firecrackers in town.
Okay.
And again, they're looking at, I know we've discussed, we need to review our bylaws and so on, but we discussed the safety aspects of it especially in the heritage area of town with the old wooden buildings.
Okay.
Firecrackers going off, things landing on buildings, roofs. Like there's a lot of concern. So just sharing that with you, and I don't know what the answer is straight up, but anyhow, just something you might want to keep a heads up to.
Okay.
Okay.
We've had, I'd like to say I was working a few months ago in regards to there were some fireworks being activated, for lack of better terms, in the community. We addressed those concerns at that time. If there are issues within the community, we ask people to come forward and talk to us directly. And our expectation is that as we work within the community, they're cooperative with us in regards to providing information on who's setting the fireworks off, and we'll deal with that as the information is obtained.
Yes, Councillor
Can
Sanford.
I ask what charges would be laid against somebody who violated?
It would have to be we could look at a mischief in a criminal code.
Okay.
First, we do education, and then through education, depending on if they were able to ascertain where we were leading with or going with the investigation. We may look at mischief complaints, but that wouldn't be an automatic charge. That
Mhm.
wouldn't, mischief would be more of a repetitive occurrence that continued with the same person.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have Counselor Halverson next.
Thanks and welcome to Lunenburg.
Thank you.
Just curious, we're back to school. What's RCMP doing right now in relation to, just making drivers aware, kids back on the roads, that kind of things? Is there any programs in place and communication with the school at this point?
We have our current SSRO, which is our school liaison officer. He's back into the schools right now. With 18 schools, the officer is trying to address. There are some schools that, due to COVID, I can't specifically say which school it is, but there are some schools that are just trying to keep from the outside interference coming in. Most schools are very receptive, if not all schools are very receptive. So it's just the start of the school season. We're just trying to find out what each school is, what the requirements, what they're asking us to do. And we're trying to make a list and kind of prioritize at this point. Traffic enforcement in regards to the schools, which is it's a better setup now with the school buses that actually have cameras. So it assists us very much with vehicles violating the school area.
One more question. Just looking at the breakdown, I think this is the kind of the standard form we normally get at these meetings. Just looking at the breakdown of staff and things, this looks like it's a district-wide breakdown. Is there a breakdown somewhere to indicate how many staff, how many resources are actually dedicated specifically to the town of Lunenburg, or does RCMP only provide just an overview of the district as a whole?
We provide an overview of the district as a whole, but we can get you those stats. I can't get you the numbers of the town itself. If you don't mind, I get your business card and I can talk to you directly.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think it would be to everyone's benefit that that was circulated to council as a whole, just for information. Any further questions at this stage? Seeing none, thank you, Corporal Payne.
Thank you.
That takes us on to 7B, the proposed regional emergency bylaw adoption. There is a draft motion provided. Is it anyone's pleasure to move that motion at this stage? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Ernst. Is there any discussion, debate, or questions of staff? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Takes us on to the Tannery Road School Annex Roof Capital Project. There is a staff report and draft motion. If the staff would like to summarize that very briefly. Looking at the town engineer.
Yeah, so as a quick summary, this has to do with the repair or replacement of the old school annex roof. And it was input into the 21-22 budget. But based on some preliminary quotations that we received in 2020 that are summarized in the report. And it enabled us to come up with a budget at that time of 26,000. In 2021, in order to try and execute the project, we put it out for proposals, and the proposals came back with different amounts that are summarized in the report. But on average, it turned out to be a little bit more expensive than what we anticipated last year. And the other issues that we had come up with was that the contractors were not able to execute the job this year. So what we would have to, if we were to award, it would have to be in the upcoming year. So we looked at the costs and the options potentially of increasing the budget in order to do this, and we came up with with a couple of numbers for 45,000 for a certain type, and then another option at 81,000 to another contractor. But just considering all the discussions about having this building be surplus and so sold off, and the complications that arose with trying to get the project executed at a reasonable price, kind of fell through. So at the end of it, we're recommending that we don't go ahead with the execution of the roof redoing, and just maintaining it in the meantime until the facility is sold.
Thank you, Dennis. Is it anyone's pleasure to move the draft motion at this stage? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Sanford, I saw. Any discussion or debate or questions? Seeing none. Oh, deputy mayor, sorry.
Just one quick question. The original budgeted funds, where were they coming from in the budget?
They were $21,000 from deed transfer tax, and there's $5,000 contribution from the Nova Scotia Community College.
Councillor Halverson.
I'd like to follow up with Ms. Dagley too. So that money coming from the community college, if we decide to go ahead with a roof repair in the future, is that money still accessible or does it need to be spent this year?
No, that has been contributed, and we can just hold that towards.
Anything further at this stage?
Just to add that the maintenance budget that we have is only $1,000. So just to put a flag to that, if we do see some substantial repairs that have to be done, while it's still in our own ownership, that $1,000 won't go too far. So I guess we will address that when the time comes.
Councillor Duggan.
$1,000 to maintain the roof for what period of time?
Till it's sold.
Okay, so like that will get us through months, sort of thing at this point?
I guess it depends upon what kind of issues, what if we have any leaks. We don't have any leaks at this time, but if the things develop, we'd have to figure out how to repair it.
All right, anything further? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item D, the Board of Trustees Common Lands, the Supreme Court Justice appointment of Errol Knickel. There's just a letter there for council's information. I'm sure you all read that. And then that takes us on to item E, the Public Works Department request for additional capital budget approval. There's a staff report and draft motion. Dennis, if you want to briefly summarize that.
I sure can, yeah. In our budget for this year, 2021-22, we did identify a need and an approved budget to replace our 2002 F-150 truck. And we set up a budget at that time of the $35,000 all inclusive. But when we went out for proposal, we received 3 bids. And two of them were for a brand new 2022 Chevy Silverado, which met all of our specifications and our needs. Unfortunately, with the HST added on, we were just short about the $1,350. So I went back to the vendors to see if there was something that they could do to help us with the price. Unfortunately, the only way to help us with the price would be to reduce features and all that stuff that we weren't prepared to do because of our needs. And so it was decided to present to you our solution that we would like to get approval of an additional $1,350. And And if Ms. Degley can confirm that the funding comes from the general capital reserve and that the reserve can accommodate this additional cost. And, you know, the opportunity for us to get a brand new truck with a new warranty and no mileage as far as issues and all that stuff would be a great help to our organization. So that's the proposal we have.
Thank you, Dennis. Prior to asking anybody if they want to move that motion, I'm just looking at the motion and it says 2002. Is that supposed to be 2022?
Mm.
It says 2002 F-150 half ton, or is that what's being replaced? That's the old one?
Oh, no. Yeah, the old one is the 2002. Yeah.
All right. In that case, I'll look for a motion to approve that or to move the motion. Counselor Duggan, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion or debate? Questions? Deputy Mayor.
One question now. Would our D-transfer tax we saved in the roof be eligible for this expenditure?
Our policy doesn't allow transfer tax for equipment purchases, so it wouldn't qualify for this item.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. That takes us on to the Foundation of the Arts Cultural Action Plan. There's a staff report and draft motion. If staff would like to summarize that.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Lunenburg Cultural Action Plan was a document that was commissioned through the, excuse me, through the Lunenburg Foundation of the Arts, which is now changed its name to the Lunenburg Cultural Collective. There is one correction. I have a note down there that they are registered as a charity for the purpose of grant bestowment on cultural organizations. So we have, with this cultural action plan, it has 5 strategic directions, which were summarized for council when they presented this last year. These 5 items, and underneath these strategic directions, there are a total of 15 goals. So some have more than others. So the primary response to the action plan is in the action planning chart that was provided as attachment B, where we went through and made notes on each one. So in the meantime, they have, there's a great deal of time that they talk about the cultural roundtable, which is something that they were going to move the steering team into this cultural roundtable, and that has in fact happened. And in fact, Deputy Mayor Mosier was appointed to that body as part of our external appointments back in November. So it does exist. I'm not sure how active they've been to this point, but we have a couple of things that they asked us to do at the time they presented. So number 1, they asked that town council endorse the cultural action plan in principle. And number 2, that the town work with the cultural roundtable to investigate resource opportunities, support implementation of the plan, and identify other partners to support the plan. So the motions basically indicate that town council does or does not. Step ahead here. That the town does or does not endorse the plan in principle. It does align with the CCP, as many of the interviews that took place happened in joint sessions between the consultants that were working on this plan and ours. And any items under their goals that we felt didn't reflect on our priorities, we've made notes of that. And not everything in those goals involves the town anyway. It's definitely a joint effort. So we can endorse or not endorse, and then we because the town council has already agreed to work with the cultural roundtable in principle by appointing Deputy Mosier, but we haven't, or council has not made a specific motion saying that formally. So you may or may not wish to do that. And in relation, which you'll find in the report, I won't go too much into right now, we did, there is a public art policy that was created a couple of years ago that hasn't actually been implemented. And because there is a little bit of overlap with this effort, that may be something that council wishes to look at, making a few revisions. So that leaves us with our 3 draft motions.
Thank you, Heather. We may want to just update the draft motions in the minutes. The usage of principal is the wrong usage. Like, it is principal is in first or primary
yes.
rather than in principal, so I'll
Okay.
just note that. Anyone wishing to
correct
speak
with
to
you.
this, move any or all of the draft motions?
I'll
Counselor-
move that we endorse it in all 3 motions.
Okay, Counselor Ernst moving all 3 motions. Is there a seconder? Counselor Sanford, is there any discussion or debate? Counselor Halverson.
Just like some clarity, sorry. This procedural policy that was included here, are we adopting that as well? You said this was presented to the last council. What's the story?
The public art policy,
Yes.
that's actually was approved by the previous council in 2018, B?
Okay, so you said was.
Yes, so it was adopted, but there hasn't really been any action taken on setting up a committee to do with that, for example.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I've been on quite a few of these meetings. They are very active. I think probably the gap that we have is that, once again, here we have an organization with a singular focus and trying to become part of our organization as council in town that has many things on our plate as opposed to a singular focus. So I think it's frustrating to them that we don't act as fast as they'd like us to. But then again, we're acting on a lot of issues, and simple fact that we are recognizing them as that this is an important aspect of our community, and the comprehensive community plan is really, I think important in itself. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none. Oh, Counselor Halverson, sorry.
I'm not done yet. Gosh. I must say, I went through this and it just seems when I start looking at the staff comments and potential use of resources, I guess my question would be to staff is, do we feel like there's a lot to take on here in conjunction with what we've already got going on with the CCP and what the other priorities we've set? I would ask perhaps Ms. Renton how she feels that is this something that's within the scope of work that staff can handle combined workload we already have?
I always appreciate when you ask that question. Now to reply. I think with the creation of the economic development manager's position, and Mr. Casario is here with us this evening, there are some possibilities. I think that might be a good opportunity to make some connections in the community and to offer a somewhat limited and guarded, staff time contribution to it. I think there are some important initiatives as Ms. McCollum pointed out with regards to implementation of the public art policy. We've been known for doing some really interesting experimental projects that have lasted the test of time, like our fish sculpture program. And I think those would be some great contributions that would be very fitting for us. And there is provincial beautification money to expand on those. So I think with, some appreciation on the part of the foundation's part about the constraints that we ourselves are presented with implementation of our own comprehensive community plan, which of course entails cultural components, I think we can help. And, you know, I will certainly step up as well too. I'm sure Ms. McCollum would. We all have a tremendous personal interest in the arts. So I think we'll try our best to help. But thank you very much for asking. It's very much appreciated.
My
If-
concern
if,
really is just about overcommitting, obviously. right? So-
Or if I could just
Yeah,
add to
that's
that, one of the, that was the very thing that we kind of had in mind with the second motion, that specific implementation should be considered on an individual basis, taking into account our existing plan and budget priorities. So we're not saying we would jump into all 15 again immediately. It would be definitely on a case-by-case basis.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, that's sort of, I think, what I was trying to say the first time, like, I don't want to build any false expectations with this group. And like, there's a lot of things in those 3 draft motions to chew off, and where we've probably, as my old business partner, we gave the staff a lot of got-tos in the comprehensive community plan, and these are like, you know, nice to haves, right? Where they have a lot of work ahead of them before we can dive into some of this stuff from a staff perspective. I think so, anyway.
Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? All 3 motions were moved by Councillor Ernst, and I believe they were seconded by Councillor Duggan. Yeah. You're perfectly within your rights to move to amend or divide the question. Okay,
I would actually move to amend so that we're only adopting the second component of the motion. I don't think we can fairly expect staff to perform this much work, and I think we need to set the expectations of the society as well. So we don't want to disappoint anyone here. So I think we should just do what's realistic, which I feel is the second motion.
all right, so you would like to remove the
The-
first and third motions from the
Yes.
main motion.
Exactly.
All right, Councillor Halverson moving that amendment, seconded by Councillor Sanford. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? All right, so that removes motions 1 and 3. That takes us back to motion 2. Now, the main motion is motion 2 only as presented. Is there any further discussion or debate on that as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right, that takes us on to item G. Province of Nova Scotia notice of receipt of repeal of the town of Lunenburg's 1996 MPS LUB subdivision bylaw, yada, yada, yada. That is required for information. I just wonder if the planner would like to speak to any of that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is what we've been waiting for a few years. It's very exciting. The province had made no amendments to their documents. So what happens now is we have them back from the province, and we're going to advertise them into effect. And that should happen next Thursday. The ad's gone to the paper and to be proofed. And so hopefully on Thursday, July 22nd, they'll be in effect.
Thank you, Don. And you mean September 22nd, right?
Yes, and I put July in the ad, so I'm not doing so well. It's September, yes.
And while we're at it, it's a Wednesday, so,
Is that okay?
okay, sounds good. So yeah, that's very exciting. We've been working at that for a long time, so it's nice to see it coming into effect. We have no committee meeting minutes, no notice of motion, et cetera, et cetera. That takes us on to new business, 9A. The proposed additional polymer dosing trials at the wastewater treatment plant. There's a staff report draft motion. The engineer would like to speak to that.
Thank you. For this proposal, I'd like to introduce, I think Lindsay is on the, I'd like to introduce Lindsay Anderson from the Dalhousie. And Lindsay was the lead / project manager for the polymer dosing tests that we've been doing over the last year. And she has agreed to join us in case there's any really technical quick questions that could come up. Lindsay, would you like to introduce yourself? There you are.
Hi, can everyone hear me? My name's Lindsay. I work at Dalhousie as the research engineer on the wastewater program. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have on the technical aspect of the polymer dosing study that we've been doing for the past year or so.
One of these days, we'll get through a meeting without a technical error. All right. Dennis, if you'd like to go through your report then.
Yeah, I already have a stammer. I don't need any more. Okay, are we good? All right, okay, fantastic. Okay, so we have a proposal, and the proposal was submitted to me from the Dalhousie Center of Water Resource Studies that Lindsay represents. And this is in collaboration with the CBCL. And Lindsay's team had already completed some preliminary polymer dosing tests at the wastewater treatment plant over the last year. And if I may just summarize, that the testing has shown that there is a high potential that the polymer dosing, which is just a constant dosing rate at the plant, is excessive, and that there is opportunity to be able to cut back on this application of the polymer dosing. So the work that was done was laboratory bench testing, and it was just the first kind of application for us to understand where we think that in-depth trials may take us. So with the results of that first report, it was presented to us to do another stage, which I've just entitled phase 3. And phase 3 entails more kind of pilot testing with our actual operational system. In order to determine exactly what kind of rates that we have to that we should and that we should alter in order to cut back on the dosage of the polymer in order to save on that chemical, but also to save on what we expect is unspent chemical that ends up out in the harbor, etc., that causes issues that we've had over the past. So what we're proposing is to do another advanced set of testing. And the purpose of the trial, and I'll just quote from here, is to test varied polymer doses on the existing DAFs to determine if changing the full-scale polymer dose would benefit the performance of the plant in terms of TSS, CBOD, or UVT measurements, and focus on determining if reducing this dose is going to be beneficial for us. So the proposal that was presented from the DAL and CBCL is attached to the report. We're expecting to execute this from the middle of September, or when we can get this for funding approved to the end of December. And we've calculated that we would require a budget of approximately $38,000, which includes the fees to the consultants, HST, internal project management, and a bit of contingency. I tried to put together a bit of justification regarding this and just to put into perspective. Currently, our yearly cost of the dry polymer chemical is roughly $22,000 per year. And our best guess before we start executing the test is that conservatively, we expect to be able to save about 50% of this chemical dosage. So we can potentially save about 11,000 per year. And then also that there's some other maintenance costs that we predict that will save as well on our pumping equipment, etc. And again, just to summarize that you know that this is based on the assumption that the visual issue in the harbor is caused by excess or unspent polymer going through the system and into the harbor. And the other aspect that I just want to mention is that even with our current plans to upgrade or replace the wastewater treatment plant, we'll still be utilizing these systems for the next 5 or 10 years. As far as for financial impact, as I mentioned, that this was not budgeted or planned before. We've estimated that it would be a cost of about $38,000. And our finance director has recommended that the sewer reserve to transfer be reduced to $25,000 in order to fund this work. And that's the proposal that we have on the table today.
Thank you, Dennis. Just to clarify with the finance director, the draft motion is provided says to reduce the reserve transfer by 25,000. Should that read to 25,000? My copy of the agenda says by 25,000.
Yeah, it should be 2.
It should be to
Yes.
25,000. Yeah. And then that should read 68,3 to 25,000. Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, 225,000 and then 63 to 25,000 afterwards is what it would read. Yeah, I'm just cognizant of making that correction for the minutes. Okay, is that clear to everyone? Anyone like to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Halverson, seconder, Councillor Ernst. Discussion, debate, questions? I'll give it to the deputy mayor for once to go first.
I was always used to be the first guy. Now you're trying to steal my thunder. Yeah, steal my thunder. Dennis, I'm looking here. So normally, I mean, I'm all in here. I mean, this is a good project. The only difference is I think there might be a little gap, and maybe this is a discussion we should all have in terms of, you know, you're predicting a 5 to 10 year time span until we get, you know, our new, you know, system in place. And I'm sort of more in the mindset it might be more of a 3 to 5 year sort of thing. And then when we're talking probably about a 4-year payback on this, if everything goes as planned, which it normally really doesn't, especially with the sewage treatment plant, is it still a worthwhile project? I guess that's my question. Or are we just chasing good money after bad? You know, reducing our reserves, and you know, when we know where it's big expenses coming down the road, right?
The facts about the justification are as laid out about the various costs of the polymer. I think the bigger part of that is the potential and the capability to reduce the amount of polymer that we excrete into the harbor, et cetera. But which is a good environmental thing for us to do now that we know that this situation exists. Yeah, for 3 to 5 years. Well, that for three, I think would be fairly optimistic. For 5 would be more realistic. So the benefit is there, albeit it isn't a huge ROI, but I just wanted to identify that it isn't money to totally lost to us, that we will recoup some of it over time. It's not meant to be an ROI to type of project, but it's certainly environmental based.
Right, I have Councillor Halverson, then Councillor Sanford.
Well, actually, you pretty much answered my question with the Deputy Mayor's question, but I do like the idea that we're taking responsibility for the environmental impact that's going in the harbor. I'd see value, even if perhaps we don't come even on the savings over the next 3 to 5 years. I feel like that's the right move to do. I do have a concern. I'd like to ask Ms. Dagley about the impacts of reducing the transfer to $25,000. What are the impacts of that?
Well, I guess it's the reserves are there for emergency items or things that come up that aren't expected. And if there's merit to moving forward with them, such as this. I will note that we had a larger reserve transfer in the fiscal year that just closed than we were anticipating. So that offsets this expenditure as well. So the reserve will not be any further ahead, further behind than we anticipated with that.
Yeah. I don't know if Lindsay has anything to add as far as justification on the execution of the project in the study.
She just texted nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks, Councillor Sanford.
Thank you. Dennis, I'm just wondering, how is the current level, or how was the current level of polymer dosing determined? How has that been determined that we've been operating the plant?
It was determined. It was determined at the original design of the plant, and it was never questioned since, as far as I know.
Okay, I think I agree with Deputy Mayor Mosier in the context of, it's not that it's a bad concept, but is the timing right? And we're investing so heavily and have been investing so heavily in the wastewater treatment plant. I think I'm getting wastewater treatment plant fatigue. So I'm wondering if now is the time, given the window, and we are being optimistic and we do want to see things move forward. So I question, is the time right for this? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanford. Councillor Duggan.
I guess back to what Deputy Mayor Mosier was saying, I guess I just don't see where we're hoping to move forward faster with the, redoing of the wastewater treatment plant. I guess I'm just not understanding, because in most of the plans that we were looking at as options, the polymer was reduced significantly. And so this is sort of just like a very short-term fix. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
To
correct.
service at the current plant.
That's correct.
So I guess I don't, with the cost, I guess I'm not seeing where the benefit is long-term with having spent that much money when we know that there's a solution coming within the next couple of years anyways. And so I agree with, everything that Councillor Sanford said and Deputy Mayor Mosier. It just doesn't seem like the right time. And it also seems like a very short-sighted project.
Councillor Halverson?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with spending the money again. I'm with everyone else. I'm tired of talking about the wastewater treatment plant. I'd love to see a solution. I want solution yesterday. Yeah. But I think, we've been down this road. We've got plans. But when are we actually going to see shovels in the ground? I mean, realistically, when are we actually going to see that plant up and actually operating? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 6 years? I don't know if it's in the term of this council even, who knows? When I look at, perhaps saving $11,000 a year, okay, that's great. I mean, what are we looking at? If it's the project budget is $38K. We save 11 grand over the next couple of years, like 3 years, we're pretty much coming even on it, as close enough as need be. And we're putting less polymer into the harbor during that time. And that's the way I'm looking at it. From the environmental point of view, I do feel like, if it costs us $5 grand over 3 years to not pump a bunch of polymer into the harbor and cause a bunch of grief to residents and people who are trying to use the water, I think that's money well spent. Plus, we get a better idea of what we should be dosing. The other question I would ask is, the information that's gathered under this study, is any of it reusable under any of the proposed options we're talking about for wastewater plant replacement?
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. I can find out for you.
It's always nice to know if we can,
Yeah.
carry that forward. That's definitely helps the financial argument.
Yeah.
So.
Councillor Halverson, I think it's also worth pointing out, Dennis, I recall in the wastewater treatment plant reports, the earliest that a treatment plant, and correct me if I'm wrong here, would be operational would be 2025, right? Is that what we were looking
Yes.
at?
Yes.
Yeah, and so it wouldn't be in the term of this council. And that is also the best case scenario in a situation where there are still a lot of unknowns. So I'm just pointing that out to council that it's worth taking that into consideration in the deliberations. Deputy Mayor.
Just one more question, maybe Lindsay can answer this better than Dennis in terms of polymers. What effect does that have in the environment? Is it killing marine life, or is it just more of a nuisance in terms of, what it does to, bottoms of your boat or your ropes or things like that?
Yeah, I'll turn that over to Lindsay.
Can I just ask everyone to turn off their microphones while she comes on? Thank you.
Hi there. Sorry for the delay. Yeah, it's more of just a nuisance from an environmental standpoint. There's no like severe issues from an ecological standpoint.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, no problem.
No, don't. It's mine on that.
She's muted.
Is there any other avenue that we can explore to reduce the polymer at the plant that is not this? I mean, is there any other way to look at that to figure out reducing it slowly and seeing how it goes? Or is this the only option for reducing it?
Yeah, so what we're proposing is essentially slowly reducing it over, a month to a few month period to reduce the pressure on the operators and letting them kind of feel out how it goes as they reduce the polymer in the full scale plant. So how it works kind of from a scientific standpoint is we've done all these kind of bench top experiments, but they don't really consider hydraulics. And the variations in wastewater quality that you would experience throughout the day. So having the operator slowly kind of dial back the dose is essentially what we're proposing in this project with some additional testing, but the additional testing is optional.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any further questions for Lindsay? Seeing none. Any further comments or questions on this as it stands? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Counselor Ernst in favor of opposed? You were in favor? So that's what, 3-4? Motion defeated, right? That's me, Counselor Halverson, myself, and Counselor Ernst in favor, and the other 4 against. You got that, Pete?
Just,
Whereas the deputy mayor, Counselor, okay, those who are against, just so we can record it. Thank you. All right, that takes us on to the town tree removal request. Linden Avenue. There's a staff report and draft motion. It's a Dennis heavy night, so Dennis, you're up again
yeah, sure.
on this one.
The memo that I put together in presentation to the council is a summary of a request for a town tree removal at location to 33 Linden Avenue. So the owner of the property has put forward that this request to be brought forth to the council. According to the information provided by the property owner and our inspections at the property, the tree causes significant damage to the property. Just in summary, the tree roots are damaging cement walkway and a retaining wall. The tree roots are encroaching on house foundation and expected to cause the damage there. Sap from the tree causing the discoloration on deck and eaves troughs and downspouts filled with debris from the tree. Otherwise, the tree is healthy and not a dead danger to public health outside of what's identified from the owner of the property. The town policy that's most applicable to this is policy 43A, which is a tree removal and trimming procedure. Upon evaluation, it could be considered that the tree is a safety concern to the integrity of the privately owned building and infrastructure at this address. As far as financial impact, since the issue with this otherwise healthy tree is only with the property owner shall be responsible for the cost of its removal. Property owner will also be responsible for the cost of planting of a new tree of an agreed upon less intrusive species at this location or some other place in town as approved by Public Works. And the removal and the new planting will be executed by the Public Works Department. So the recommendation is brought forth that the tree be removed and a new tree planted in its place.
Thank you, Dennis. Any questions, Dennis, at this stage? I just have one, Dennis. The information provided by the property owner was verified by Public Works. Okay, then there is a draft motion provided. Is it anyone's pleasure to move that draft motion as presented? Nobody moves it, then the request is in effect denied. That's fine, but it's just, okay, moved by Councillor Halverson. Is there a seconder? All right, seeing no seconder, the motion dies on the floor. Would anyone like to move the denial of the request, just to confirm it? We're not going to move the approval. We basically have to move the denial. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Sanford. Any discussion or debate? Motion is to deny the request.
I mean, has any other property owner on that street requested? Yeah, I'm looking at that. I mean, that we all know that street. It's lots of linden trees on there. Has anyone else had an issue? Have anyone come to council, come to City Hall about this at all? Similar concerns?
Deputy Mayor?
Well, I can answer that. I think it was the last council, someone had requested a tree on that street removed and the council denied it. So it's a healthy tree, healthy, mature tree, even to boot, right?
Yeah. Okay. The motion is to deny the request. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. All right, that takes us on to C, proposed town participation in the Municipal Finance Corporation's fall debenture issue. There's a staff report and draft motion. I will turn it over to the finance director.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's really just a procedural item like this for council, because council will recall your approval of the TBR back in June. And this is just the process to secure the debt with the Municipal Finance Corporation. So it does require a resolution of council, which is included in the report as Schedule 2.
Thank you, Ms. Dagley. Would anyone like to move the draft motion as presented? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Council Bertels. Is there any discussion, debate, or questions of Ms. Dagley at this stage? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. That takes us on to item D, application to demolish 102 Pelham Street for commercial redevelopment. There's a staff report and draft motion. I will turn it over to, I presume, the heritage manager to speak to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. The owners of Lunenburg Arms, located at 94 Pelham Street, has made application to demolish 102 Pelham Street and consolidate the lands with 94 Pelham Street to enable the expansion of the hotel. It is recommended the council receive the application and forward the application to the Heritage Advisory Committee and the Lunenburg Heritage Society for advice in keeping with policy 4.8.1.5 of the Heritage Conservation District Plan. I have drafted a report to the HAC, which is attached just for information purposes to give council further information on the project. The applicant has also made an application to develop the corner lot, which is the surface parking lot across the street on PID number 600-61199 and PID 600-61181 at the corner to develop a new commercial building accommodating hotel suites with an accessory parking structure. It is recommended that council refer this application to the HAC in keeping with section 4.1 of the Lunenburg Heritage Bylaw. Now, just for council's information, both of these applications will require a public hearing before council makes a final decision. So I have drafted 2 motions in your agenda package for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Are there any questions of Arthur at this stage? Arthur, I just have one quick one. So this would be referred to HAC and HAC would come back with a recommendation that would then be given first reading to go to a public hearing. And
Correct.
council, as it can with anything, could change the recommendation at that stage.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. In that case, I will look for a motion to approve that as presented, moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councilor Halverson first. He's always quick on the draw. Is there any discussion or debate on that matter? Deputy Mayor.
Just one question to Arthur. When would you anticipate this coming back to council? What kind of time frame?
It's really hard to know right at the moment. I was just talking to the chair of the HAC and we're hoping to schedule a meeting sometime in October, I believe. And so it should be coming back to council in November. I did outline in the report that we do have to consider amendment to our new land use bylaw to accommodate the lot consolidations. So if council wishes, they could actually refer that application to the PAC this evening as well to try to, keep the process moving along concurrently. So I'll just leave that out for your consideration. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is that, part of good customer service and for a developer is, as quick as answers as you can get, right? So, I think as long as there's no obvious holdups, we should move this through the process as quick as possible.
And is that a proposal to amend to include the PAC, the land use bylaw, be referred to PAC at the same time. Can we assume that that's an amendment by unanimous consent?
To that, to incorporate in the motion.
So there was also an application to amend what would be the new land use bylaw coming into effect on September 22nd. Because the maximum lot size in the district would be less than I think what they wanted to, what they would require in terms of development. So there was application on that basis as well, Arthur. That's
A planning application on
a
that
planning
basis.
application that would then be referred to PAC
Yes.
simultaneously.
Okay, so without having a staff report at this time, just to make two forks in the road, HAC, PAC application. Thank you.
Yeah. And we will note what the deputy mayor is really saying is it being development, it can't be fast enough for him. Counselor Alverson.
Yeah, I just want to be clear on what it is we're asking. I just heard someone say that we're looking at amending the new land use bylaw. Are we looking at an exception to the land use bylaw for this particular instance, or are we looking at modifying the entire land use bylaw for all properties that are similar to this one? What are we
No,
doing
so as
here?
I understand it, and staff can weigh in and correct me if I'm wrong, what is proposed or what is desired to be built would be in excess of the current maximum
Mhm.
that's allowed in the Old Town Zone under the new land use bylaw.
Right.
And so there's an application to amend that to accommodate the development. And the motion tonight is simply to refer that application to PAC and have them bring us back a recommendation the same way HAC would be bringing us back a recommendation
For this one particular problem.
for this
These
one
two
particular issue,
properties, I guess
yes.
it is. Okay.
And to weigh that against policy considerations in the land use bylaw and make a
Yes.
recommendation to either approve or deny an application or find a path forward.
Last thing I want to do is start tearing open the land use bylaw again. So let's, okay.
You and me both.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is understood. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. That takes us on to a special event permit from the Board of Trade for September 17th. So, no opportunity to revise this one. There's a draft motion provided for an outdoor movie night. Is there anyone who would like to move that as presented? Moved by Counselor Duggan, seconded by Counselor Halverson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing. I believe, and don't quote me on that, well, I'm on live, so I think it's Raya and the Last Dragon and then Wonder Woman 1984, if I'm correct, and if I'm not, the Board of Trade can correct that as noted. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now I need a motion to meet in camera pursuant to section 22(2) of the Municipal Government Act to discuss the motions, the items, listed in that list. Is somebody be so kind as to move that? Counselor Sanford, seconded by Counselor Bertles. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And with council's unanimous consent, we'll take a 10-minute recess while we transition